When pain hits, it feels final. It feels like the closing chapter, like the lights just went out on your story. But in reality, it's often the birth of something new. God doesn't allow pain without attaching purpose to it. That pressure you feel, that crushing weight, it's not the signal that it's over. It's the sign that something is about to begin. Think about a seed. It looks like it's buried under dirt, lifeless and forgotten. But that seed isn't buried. It's planted. That dirt is not a grave. It's the environment for growth. Your pain might feel like a burial, but heaven calls it planting. What's coming next will be so much bigger than what you lost. The hardest part is believing that while you are in the middle of it, pain has a way of shrinking your perspective down to survival mode. But God sees the full story. He knows that the struggle you are in today is preparing you for blessings you can't even imagine yet. If you stop here, if you let the pain convince you that it's the end, you will miss the harvest. The process is uncomfortable. Growth never feels good while it's happening. But every tear, every sleepless night, every deep breath you take when you want to give up, it's all watering the seed of your next season. The pressure is the proof that something is forming. You can't see it yet, but heaven is arranging people, opportunities, and moments to align with what he promised you. You are being prepared for a reveal. The storm that's surrounding you right now is not the storm that will sink you. It's the storm that will shape you. And when you come out of it, you will be stronger, wiser, and more grounded in your faith. The pain is not the end of your story. It's the introduction to your next chapter. Those scars you carry, they are not just evidence of where you have been hurt. They are proof that you survived. Every painful experience you have end. Yours is a page in the testimony God is writing through your life. You might think those moments broke you, but in reality, they built something inside you that comfort couldn't. Easy seasons don't create warriors. Storms do. And those storms have trained you in ways you can't even fully appreciate yet. Your wounds have depth. They have history. They are reminders that you have been through battles that tried to destroy you but failed. You might not feel like a victor right now, but you are still here, and that's victory in itself. One day, you are going to meet someone walking through the very valley you barely made it out of, and your story will be the lifeline they need. You will speak from a place of authority because you have been there. You will understand their tears because you cried them. When you speak to them, it won't be from a place of theory. It will be from the trenches of your survival. And they will listen, not because you are perfect, but because you are proof that broken people can still be used by God. Your pain has already been translated into strength, even if you can't see it yet. Every time you share your scars, you release someone else from the shame of theirs. That's the purpose. That's ministry. Not one wound you carry is wasted. God redeems them all. We live in a world that craves answers. We want to know why, how, when, and what's next. But God's plan isn't always laid out in advance like a GPS. Sometimes it's a step-by-step journey where you only see the next step when you take the current one. When pain hits, our first reaction is often to demand an explanation. We think if we could just understand it, we could endure it. But some of the greatest moves of God in your life will make no sense while they are happening. That's because he's not just working with the piece you see. He's working with the entire picture. He's aligning things in your future that you don't even know you will need yet. If he showed you the full blueprint, you'd probably run the other way. Faith lives in the unknown. It's in those seasons where nothing makes sense and yet you choose to believe anyway that your relationship with God deepens the most. Understanding is comforting, but trust is transformational. You have to get comfortable not knowing. You have to stop trying to calculate the exact route and let God navigate. The more you try to figure out what only he knows, the more exhausted you will be. Sometimes the question isn't why is this happening, but who is in control of this? And if you know he's in control, you can walk through the valley without a map because you trust the shepherd. It's not about understanding right now. It's about trusting while you don't. When God makes you wait, it's not because he's forgotten about you. It's because he's preparing something for you. Waiting seasons can be some of the most frustrating times in your life because you feel like you are ready, but nothing is moving. You pray, you plan, you try, but doors stay closed. That's when the enemy whispers, it's never going to happen. But the truth is, a delay is not a denial. God is still working, just not on your timetable. Think about it. If you plant a seed, you don't go back the next morning demanding fruit. There's a process under the soil that you can't see. The roots are growing first, and without those roots, the plant won't survive. That's exactly what God is doing in your life during the waiting season. He's building roots deep enough to hold the blessing when it finally comes. Sometimes the delay is about you. God knows if he gave you what you have been praying for too soon, you might not have the maturity, the discipline, or the spiritual strength to handle it. A blessing out of season can become a burden. He's not punishing you by making you wait. He's protecting you from being crushed by the very thing you have been asking for. Other times, the delay is about what's around you. Maybe the right people aren't in place yet. Maybe the location, the opportunity, or the resources aren't ready. You can't see all the moving pieces from where you stand, but God is behind the scenes, aligning everything so it works in your favor. It's easy to get discouraged when you see others getting their breakthroughs while you are still in line. But your journey isn't theirs. What God has for you has your name on it, and nobody else can take it. If it hasn't arrived yet, it's because it's still being perfected. The delay is also a test. It reveals whether you really trust God or if you only trust him when things happen fast. Some of the strongest faith in the Bible was forged in seasons of waiting. Abraham for a son, Joseph for freedom, David for the throne. If they had to wait for God's timing, so will you. You might be in a holding pattern right now, circling over your promise, but at the right time, God will give you the clearance to land. And when that moment comes, you will understand why the wait was necessary. Anybody can smile when life is good, when the bills are paid, when your body feels strong, and when the people around you love you. But when pain hits, when you have been betrayed, when your health is failing, when the people you trusted turn their backs, that's when the real you shows up. Pain has a way of peeling back the layers and exposing what's inside. It doesn't ask for permission. It just brings your true character to the surface. Pain is like fire. Fire doesn't just destroy, it refines. Gold is put into the fire so the impurities can rise to the top. Your struggles work the same way. They bring up the impatience, the fear, the doubt, and the anger you didn't even know you had. It's uncomfortable, but it's necessary because you can't heal what you won't admit is there. When you are in pain, you find out quickly whether your faith is just a Sunday habit or a lifeline you truly depend on. Pain strips away the convenience of religion and forces you into the reality of a relationship. When everything else is gone, you learn what and who you believe in. It's also in pain that your strength gets tested. People will tell you you are strong, but you don't know if you are until you have been through something that tries to break you. And when you keep moving forward through the tears, through the confusion, through the exhaustion, that's when you discover a resilience you didn't even know was possible. Pain doesn't just reveal your weaknesses, it also reveals your growth. You start to notice how you respond differently than you used to. Things that would have made you quit before now make you pray harder. Things that used to scare you now push you to dig deeper. That's growth. And pain is often the teacher that brings it out of you. Sometimes pain will also reveal the truth about the people around you. Not everyone will stick around when you are hurting. Some will distance themselves. Some will judge you. But the ones who love you for real will step in closer when life hits hard. Pain will filter your circle without you having to say a word. You may not like what pain exposes, but it's better to know the truth than to live in a comfortable lie. When God allows pressure in your life, it's often to bring the hidden things to light so you can become the person he intended you to be. Have you ever noticed how sometimes you pray for a blessing and instead of life getting easier, it gets harder? You ask God for growth and suddenly you are in situations that stretch you so far you feel like you're going to snap. You ask for strength and he puts you in battles. You ask for patience and he makes you wait longer than you ever imagined. It feels like the opposite of what you prayed for, but often that's how God works. The reason it feels like trouble is that we only see the front side of the process. God is working from a different angle. He sees the result while you are stuck looking at the mess in the middle. What looks like chaos to you is actually strategy to him. That storm that feels like it's going to drown you is the same storm that's going to wash away everything holding you back. Look at Joseph in the Bible. He had a dream from God about greatness, but the next thing that happened was betrayal by his brothers, slavery, and prison. To the outside eye, it looked like he was going backward, but in reality, every painful step was moving him closer to the palace. The trouble was transportation. Sometimes God answers your prayer by breaking apart the life you knew. He'll let certain people walk away, shut certain doors, and remove certain comforts because they are not part of where you are going. You think you are losing, but he's just clearing the path. That's why his plan often starts with disruption. It forces you out of the old so he can bring you into the new. It's not easy to accept this in the moment. Trouble is loud. It makes you doubt. It makes you feel abandoned. That's when faith has to speak louder than fear. You have got to remind yourself that just because it looks bad right now doesn't mean it's going to end badly. God's track record is flawless. Even if his methods don't make sense to you, what you call trouble, God might call training. What you see as a setback, he sees as a setup. That's why it's so dangerous to judge God's plan too early. You will label it as destruction when it's construction. The beginning of God's plan often feels like the end of yours. And that's exactly the point. He's replacing what you built in your strength with something greater that's built in his. It's so easy to take the season you are in right now and believe it's the definition of your whole life. When you are in pain, it feels permanent. When you are broke, it feels endless. When you are lonely, it feels like this is how it's always going to be. But the moment you are in is just that, a moment. It's not the full picture. You can't judge the masterpiece based on a single brushstroke. Life is a series of seasons, and no season lasts forever. The storm doesn't mean there's no sun coming. The winter doesn't mean spring isn't on the way. Just because you are in a chapter of struggle doesn't mean the whole book is a tragedy. The problem is pain has a way of convincing you that what you are experiencing now will last forever. When you measure your life only by the present, you rob yourself of hope. You forget that you have been through hard seasons before and made it out. You forget that the God who saw you through the last storm hasn't gone anywhere. The same one who kept you then will keep you now. Sometimes you have to step back mentally and look at your life from a higher perspective. If you could see where God is taking you, you wouldn't panic over where you are. You'd understand that this is just one stop along the journey, not the final destination. Every great story has tension before the resolution. The enemy loves to trap you in right now thinking. He wants you so focused on today's pain that you forget about tomorrow's promise. But faith looks beyond the mom. And faith says, I know what it looks like now, but I also know what God has spoken over my life. And that's the reality I'm holding on to. Think about any construction site. In the middle of the work, it looks messy, broken, and incomplete. But the mess is proof that progress is being made. That's what your life looks like right now. God is still building, and this moment is part of the process. The danger of measuring your life by this moment is that you will give up too soon. You will think it's over when it's only just beginning. You have got to hold on long enough to see the rest of the story unfold. Some things you will never release willingly. You will hold on. It's comfortable. It's familiar because it's been part of your life for so long that you can't imagine living without it. But God knows when something or someone is no longer part of your destiny, and sometimes he will use pain as the only thing strong enough to make you let go. There are relationships you might have kept if they didn't hurt you. There are jobs you might have stayed in if they didn't break you down. There are habits you might have continued if they didn't drain the life out of you. Pain becomes the wake-up call that you can't ignore anymore. It pushes you to a place where holding on costs you more than letting go. Letting go rarely feels peaceful at first. It can feel like you are losing everything. Your heart will fight it, your mind will question it, and your emotions will beg you to run back to what's familiar. But what's familiar isn't always what's best. Sometimes it's the very thing blocking you from stepping into the life God has prepared for you. The truth is, if it was meant for you, it wouldn't require you to shrink yourself to keep it. It wouldn't drain your joy or rob your peace. When something is truly aligned with God's plan, it doesn't mean it's easy, but it will push out toward growth, not destruction. Pain exposes the difference between what's feeding you and what's slowly killing you. We often pray for God to remove what's not good for us, but when he does, it rarely happens gently. Sometimes it comes through betrayal, rejection, or disappointment. And as much as it hurts, that separation is an act of mercy. It's God answering your prayer in a way you didn't expect. You might feel abandoned, but the truth is you are being redirected. You are being set free from what was holding you hostage. And the pain you feel in the release is nothing compared to the peace you will feel once you have healed from it. Pain is not always punishment. Sometimes it's protection. It's the hand of God pulling you out of something you would have stayed in until it destroyed you. Pain has a voice, and it can be loud. It tells you things in the middle of the night when you can't sleep. It whispers lies in your head when you are driving alone. It convinces you that what you see now is all there will ever be. If you are not careful, you will start believing pain over the promises God has already spoken over your life. Pain says you are forgotten. God's promise says, I will never leave you nor forsake you. Pain says this will never get better. God's promise says, I know the plans I have for you, plans to give you hope and a future. Pain says you are too weak to get through this. God's promise says, my strength is made perfect in your weakness. You have to decide which voice gets the final say. The problem is that pain is present and God's promise is often future focused. The pain is right in front of you. You can feel it, you can see it, you can't escape it. But the promise requires faith to see it before it shows up. That's why so many people get stuck. They let the reality of their current situation drown out the reality of what God has spoken. Faith is not pretending the pain isn't there. Faith is acknowledging the pain, but refusing to let it dictate your. Sometimes God lets you reach the breaking point because that's when you finally stop trying to carry it alone. As long as you think you can do it in your own strength, you will keep holding on to control. But when you hit that wall, when you fall to your knees and say, God, I can't, that's when he steps in and says, good, now watch me. You will notice something about breakthroughs. They don't usually come in the middle of your strength. They come in the middle of your weakness. They show up when you have run out of resources, run out of ideas, run out of options. Because then when the breakthrough happens, no doubt made it happen. The breaking point also strips away distractions. When you are desperate for God to move, you stop caring about the small stuff. You stop trying to please everybody. You stop worrying about how it looks to others. Your focus becomes laser sharp on what matters most. And that's the perfect mindset for a breakthrough to arrive. If you have ever watched someone run a marathon, the hardest point isn't at the start. It's near the finish line when the body is screaming to stop. That's where you are right now. You are not just randomly struggling, you are close. That pressure, that exhaustion, that heaviness you feel is a sign that you are almost there. Right after the breaking point, things often shift suddenly. Doors that were stuck, opportunities show up that you didn't see coming. The weight you have been carrying starts to lift. That's why you can't quit when it's hardest, because the breakthrough might be only one more step away. Struggle is not a sign that you are losing. It's a sign that you are still in the ring. If you weren't fighting, there would be no resistance. If you had given up, there would be no pushback. The very fact that you are waking up every day and trying again, even when you are tired, is proof that you haven't surrendered. Struggle means you are still swinging. People often think that because they are facing difficulty, it must mean something is wrong. But in reality, the battle always intensifies when you are making progress. The enemy doesn't waste energy attacking someone who's standing still. The resistance comes because you are moving forward, even if it feels slow. That's why you can't misinterpret struggle as defeat. There are days when you wake up and don't feel motivated. You are tempted to stop, to let things slide, to tell yourself it's not worth it. But even if you are crawling, you are still advancing. Progress is progress, whether it's a sprint or a slow step. The fight isn't about speed, it's about refusing to back down. Think about a boxer in the final rounds. His face is bruised, his body is sore, his energy is drained, but he's still standing. The crowd might think he's losing, but he knows that every second he stays in the ring is a chance to land that winning punch. That's how your life works. The fight isn't over just because you are hurting. Your struggle is also shaping you in ways you don't see yet. Every obstacle you face is building your endurance. Every hit you take and keep moving through is proof you are stronger than you think. The pain isn't pointless. It's preparing you for what's coming next. And here's the truth. People who win in life aren't the ones who never struggled. They are the ones who refuse to let the struggle stop them. They felt the pressure, they heard the doubt in their mind, but they still showed up. That's what makes the difference between people who dream and people who achieve. So the next time you feel the weight of the fight, remind yourself, the only reason you feel it is because you are still in it. And as long as you are still in it, the possibility of victory is still alive. Pain changes you. It pushes you to places you never thought you could go, forces you to dig deeper than you ever imagined, and reveals a level of strength you didn't even know was inside you. When everything is comfortable, you never really test your limits. But when you are hurting, when you feel like you can't take another step, that's when the hidden power starts to show up. The truth is, growth never happens in comfort. Muscles don't get stronger without resistance, and your character doesn't grow without trials. You don't find out what you are truly made of when everything is easy. You find out when life hits you hard and you have to decide whether to break or to push through. That decision, made over and over again in pain, builds a strength that comfort could never give you. Think back to the moments you thought would destroy you. At the time, you didn't see a way out. You cried, you doubted, and you even questioned whether you could make it, but you did. And looking back now, you realize you are tougher, wiser, and stronger because of it. Pain didn't just leave you with scars. It left you with weapons you can use for the rest of your life. There's a certain confidence that comes from surviving things you thought would end you. It's not arrogance. It's a quiet, unshakable belief that if you made it through that, you can make it through anything. That's the gift pain gives you, not just strength, but the proof of that strength written into your soul. Sometimes pain also strips away the unnecessary. It removes the people, the habits, and the mindsets that were holding you back. It forces you to simplify, to focus on what truly matters, and to stop wasting energy on things that don't push you forward. In that way, pain doesn't just strengthen you, it sharpens you. And the best part is, once you have found that strength, you can't lose it. Life might throw new challenges at you, but you have already proven to yourself that you can take the hit and keep moving. Every time you do it, your capacity grows and your resilience becomes a shield against whatever comes next. So while pain feels like it's tearing you apart in the moment, what it's doing is forging a version of you that can face storms you never thought you could survive. The valley is the place nobody wants to be. It's low, it's quiet, and it feels like you are far away from the mountaintop moments you dream about. But what you don't see right now is that the valley is where the training happens. It's where your character is built, your faith is tested, and your endurance is stretched. If you skip the valley, you won't be ready for the weight of the mountain you are asking for. In the valley, you face challenges that force you to slow down and pay attention. You learn discipline, you learn patience, and you learn how to move forward without all the answers. You are building habits here that will keep you steady when you finally reach the heights you have been praying for. Without the valley, the mountain could overwhelm you. The valley also teaches you humility. Up on the mountain, it's easy to feel like you have got it all figured out. But in the valley, you realize just how much you need strength beyond your own. That humility becomes a weapon against pride. And pride is one of the biggest reasons people fall once they have climbed high. Every obstacle in the valley is a rehearsal for something greater. That financial struggle is preparing you to handle abundance with wisdom. That betrayal is preparing you to discern who belongs in your next season. That loneliness is preparing you to stand strong even when the crowd isn't cheering. Nothing in the valley is wasted. Sometimes you feel like you are walking in circles down there, but really you are taking a route that's strengthening your footing. Climbing a higher mountain takes balance, and balance comes from learning to navigate uneven ground without falling apart. The valley gives you that skill step by step, day by day. It's also in the valley that you develop resilience. Up on the peak, the air is thin. You need strong lungs to breathe up there. Down here is where you build them. Every setback, every disappointment, every not yet is adding to your capacity to handle what's coming without crumbling under pressure. And when you finally start your climb, you will realize the valley wasn't punishment. It was preparation. The very things that made you want to quit here will be the same things that give you the strength to stand firm when you reach the higher mountain ahead. The enemy doesn't just care about making you sad, tired, or frustrated. His real target is your faith. Because if he can take your faith, he knows he can take everything else that flows from it. Joy is important, peace is valuable, but faith is the foundation. Without faith, you stop believing that things can change. You stop praying and you stop expecting God to show up in your life. That's why the attacks feel so personal. They are designed to shake your belief system, not just your emotions. Sometimes life will throw one problem after another at you, not because you have done something wrong, but because the enemy is trying to wear you down. He wants you to start questioning if God hears you, if the promises are really true, and if it's even worth trying anymore. Those thoughts don't just appear out of nowhere. They are planted to slowly chip away at your confidence in God's plan. It's not just about stealing your happiness for a day. It's about creating a pattern where you expect disappointment more than you expect a breakthrough. The enemy knows that if he can get you to live in that mindset, you will stop reaching for the things God has already prepared for you. You will settle for less because you are too afraid to hope for more. That's why the attacks often come right after you have made progress or right before a big blessing. The enemy isn't dumb. He studies your patterns. He knows when your faith is building momentum, and he'll try to hit you where it hurts most so that you second guess yourself and God. If he can get you to quit in the middle, you won't see the reward at the end. When your faith is under attack, you will notice that small problems feel like massive obstacles. It's not just the situation, it's the weight of doubt pressing on your spirit. That's why some days feel heavier than others for no logical reason. It's spiritual pressure meant to break your focus and make you forget how far you have already come. But here's what's powerful. Every time you choose to believe anyway, you are fighting back. Every prayer you pray when you feel nothing, every worship moment when you feel empty, every act of obedience when you rather walk away, those are punches thrown against the attack on your faith. They remind the enemy that no matter what, you won't let go of the one thing he wants most. And once you understand that it's your faith he's after, you stop taking every attack personally. You start seeing them as confirmation that you are carrying something valuable, something so powerful that it threatens him enough to try to take it from you. Some of you are exhausted, not because you are weak, but because you have been fighting battles that were never meant to be fought in your strength. You have been pushing, forcing, and trying to make something happen, thinking that if you just work harder or stress more, the situation will break. But sometimes the real breakthrough doesn't come from fighting harder. It comes from letting go and allowing God to take over completely. Surrender doesn't mean you have given up on the promise. It means you have stopped trying to control how it unfolds. There's a huge difference between quitting and surrendering. Quitting says, I'm done because I don't believe it will happen. Surrender says, I still believe, but I trust God's way more than mine. That's a bold kind of faith, to release the steering wheel and let him drive, even when you don't know where the road is leading. We live in a culture that glorifies the grind, the hustle, the constant fight. But the truth is, you can fight yourself into a corner where you are too tired to even receive the blessing when it comes. Sometimes the fight is not with your circumstances, it's with your own will. And the hardest battle you will ever face is the one where God asks you to lay down your plan for his. The struggle often feels familiar because it keeps you in motion. But not all motion is progress. You can be spinning your wheels, sweating, pushing, and still be stuck in the same spot year after year. Surrender shifts you from working in your strength to walking in his strength. It's like switching from rowing a boat against the current to opening up the sail and let The wind carry you forward. Some of you have been asking God for direction, but the noise of your efforts is drowning out his instructions. You are so focused on fixing, managing, and controlling that you can't hear the gentle whisper that's telling you to be still. Surrender requires silence, not the absence of noise around you, but the quieting of the noise within you. The moment you surrender, you permit God to work in ways you could never imagine. You open the door for unexpected provision, divine timing, and supernatural alignment. When you are fighting in your strength, you are limited to your ideas. But when you surrender, you give access to the one who sees the whole picture and has the power to move things instantly. And sometimes the enemy wants you to believe that if you are not struggling, you are not trying. But the truth is, surrender is not weakness. It's spiritual warfare in disguise. It's the bold declaration that you will not be dragged into anxiety, fear, or control because you trust the one who is already in control. Pain has a way of breaking through the noise of life and getting your attention like nothing else. When everything is going right, you can go days, weeks, even months without praying with urgency. But when pain hits, when the loss is fresh, when the betrayal cuts deep, when the diagnosis knocks the wind out of you, you find yourself calling on God in a way you never did before. Pain strips away the distractions. It forces you into a place where you realize you don't have as much control as you thought. And that's when your heart becomes open to him in a deeper way. In seasons of comfort, it's easy to think you have life handled. You make plans, chase goals, and live like you are steering the ship on your own. But pain reminds you that there are storms bigger than your strength. It makes you realize you need an anchor that's stronger than your circumstances. And when you reach for God in that moment, it's not a casual reach. It's desperate. It's raw. It's real. Pain doesn't allow you to pray polite, scripted prayers. It pulls out the truth in your soul, the kind of prayers that shake heaven. Sometimes God allows the pain not because he wants to harm you, but because he wants to heal you in a way comfort never could. If you never had to cry out to him, you might never know how present he is. Pain is often the tool he uses to draw you closer, not because he enjoys your hurt, but because he knows what the closeness will produce. The intimacy that comes from praying through tears, worshiping through heartbreak, and trusting through uncertainty is something you can't get from a comfortable life. The truth is, pain tests your faith, but it also grows it. Anybody can trust God when the bills are paid, the relationships are healthy, and the plans are going as expected. But when you are in pain, trust becomes a decision, not a feeling. And every time you choose to trust him in the pain, your relationship with him goes deeper. You start to realize that your faith is not based on what he gives you, but on who he is. That's where real spiritual maturity begins to take root. Pain also clears out the idols you didn't even know you had. It reveals what you have been leaning on instead of God. Maybe you put too much trust in people, and when they walked away, you learned that God is the one who never leaves. Maybe you leaned on your strength, and when it failed, you found that his strength was made perfect in your weakness. Pain has a way of showing it. None you that everything else can be shaken, but he is the one unshakable thing in your life. And there's something powerful about realizing that God is not just a distant savior you call on in emergencies. He's a present father who sits with you in the pain. He doesn't just fix it. Sometimes he just stays with you in it until you are strong enough to move forward. When you begin to experience his comfort in those moments, you come to understand that his presence is more valuable than the absence of pain. It's in those nights you cry yourself to sleep only to feel a peace you can't explain, that you know he's closer than your breath. The closeness that pain brings is not something you forget when the season changes. It shapes you. It teaches you that he's not just the God of your victories, but the God of your valleys. And when you have walked through enough valleys with him, you stop doubting his presence the next time you face a storm, because you have already seen for yourself that the pain didn't push him away. It pulled you closer. There are people right now fighting battles you can't see, carrying weights you can't imagine, and searching for hope they can't find. They are looking for proof that it's possible to make it through what they are facing. And whether you realize it or not, Your story, yes, the one full of scars, mistakes, setbacks, and comebacks, might be the very thing they need to keep going. You might think your pain disqualified you, but in reality is the very thing that equips you to speak to someone else's storm with credibility, compassion, and conviction. People don't always need a perfect example. They need a real one. Think about it. When you hear someone say, I've been through the fire and I'm still standing, it hits differently than just reading a motivational quote. It's raw, it's human, it's believable. Your story carries that same power. The nights you cried, the days you thought you couldn't push forward, the prayers you prayed in desperation, those moments become fuel for someone else's faith. What you have survived isn't just for you. It's a lifeline for someone who thinks survival isn't possible. We often want to hide the ugliest chapters of our lives because we think they make us look weak or foolish. But here's the truth. Those very chapters might be the ones that speak the loudest to someone else's heart. When you are willing to say, I didn't have it all together, but God carried me through, you permit someone else to admit they are struggling too. And in that moment, the walls come down, the masks come off, and real healing can begin, not just for them, but for you as well. Sometimes you don't even realize someone's watching you. They might never tell you they have been inspired by your resilience, but they are studying the way you keep showing up, the way you keep believing, the way you keep trusting, even when everything says you shouldn't. You are planting seeds of hope in people's lives simply by living out your journey in faith. That's why your story matters. It's not just words, it's proof. And the thing about survival stories is they don't need to be wrapped up with a pretty bow to inspire someone. You don't have to have every answer, every blessing, or every breakthrough yet. Sometimes the most powerful testimony is in the middle of the process when you can honestly say, I'm still walking through it, but I haven't given up. That kind of faith is contagious. It tells others, if they can endure, maybe I can too. When you withhold your story, you rob someone Loves of the chance to see what faith in action looks like. God doesn't waste pain, and he doesn't let it happen without purpose. The same way someone's testimony once pulled you through, your words, your example, and your endurance can be the hand someone else grabs onto when they are sinking. You don't have to force it. You just have to be willing to share it when the moment comes. There's a reason your journey has been so unique, why your storms have been so personal, and why your victories will be so powerful. It's because your path was never meant to be compared. It was meant to be a guide. Not everyone will understand your struggles, but the ones who need your story will recognize themselves in it. And when they do, they won't just see your pain. They will see the God who carried you through every single step. Sometimes you go through a season that feels like it's breaking you apart. But the truth is, God is building something inside you that can't be shaken. That pain you feel is not wasted. Every tear, every sleepless night, every unanswered question, it's all part of a divine process. God doesn't allow pain without purpose. If he's letting you go through it, it means there's something he's preparing you for that's greater than what you can see right now. The pain is just the molding, shaping, and refining of your faith. It's easy to believe God is good when life feels good. But when life hurts, when you have prayed and it feels like nothing is changing, that's when faith is tested. That's when God is asking, do you trust me even when you don't understand me? Pain has a way of stripping away false comfort and forcing you to hold on to him tighter. And sometimes it's only in the pain that we discover just how much we need him. You may be looking at your life right now and thinking, if this is God's plan, why does it hurt so much? But you have got to remember, sometimes God's best work comes through discomfort. Just like a seed has to be buried before it grows, you might feel buried right now, but you are being planted. Pain is not a sign that God has abandoned you. It's often a sign that he's positioning you for transformation. Think about the greatest blessings in your life. They probably didn't come without some form of struggle. The people you admire, the ones with unshakable faith, didn't get there because life was easy. They got there because they trusted God through seasons that tried to break them. They learned that his plan isn't about keeping you comfortable. It's about making you capable of carrying the blessing when it arrives. God's plan often requires us to walk through places we'd rather avoid. But if he's leading you through pain, it's because he sees the victory that lies beyond it. You might not understand why you are in this season, but God isn't asking you to understand. He's asking you to trust. And trust often means walking forward even when every step feels heavy. What you call pain, God often calls preparation. He's stretching you, strengthening you, and deepening your roots so you can withstand the weight of what's coming. If he gave you the blessing too soon, it could crush you. But through this pain, he's building the resilience, the character, and the spiritual maturity you will need to carry it well. So instead of despising the pain, start asking God what he's teaching you through it. Because one day you will look back and realize the very thing you begged him to take away was the thing that prepared you for the life you prayed for. That's why his plan is always worth the pain, because he sees the end from the beginning and he knows exactly what it takes to get you there.